That has a brood.
You've talked a lot, and a lot of people online and elsewhere talk a lot about using, is it 1095, right? The
Exchange.
exchange, right, to really amass wealth.
I don't know what it is.
It's 1095 or 1094, isn't it?
No.
Oh, 1095 is a tax.
I'm trying to think what it is.
1095 is a tax.
It's called a Starker exchange, but I don't remember the number.
Regardless of the number.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about exchange and using, the government's policies to amass wealth, essentially. When did you start doing that?
Probably around 1985 or 86.
So it was still the first 5 to 6 years, 6 to 7 years, it was all cash based. You're paying taxes on everything. It was, were you looking at it more so of like, I got to have cash on hand all the time and I got to make cash, rather than, you got to that point and then you had enough cash that was still coming in that you could live. But then it's like, am I saying that correctly?
Well, I think I get the gist. I'm not sure if I can add on to it efficiently. When you build a single family and sell it, you had to live in it, I think it was 18 or 24 months in order to do the Starker exchange. And we never lived in them that long, so I couldn't. So if we made $20,000 on a spec house, I had to pay taxes on $20,000. So the sooner I could get out of that routine, the sooner I knew that I'd be better off. And so I did it with multifamily apartments. And then, so if you build a building and you make 50,000 or whatever the number is, and you can, if it's an 8-family, and you find a 24-family that's 20 years old that you can trade into, you're able to take the money, that 50,000 you made, and move it forward to the other building.
Non-taxable.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the real advantage of that was obviously you have more money to carry forward. So as you play Monopoly and go from little green houses to little red hotels, you learn a lot about what it is and the exponential amount of income that you're going to get from the rent.
Right.
And so I got a kick out of it. I mean, to me, it was just a big game that I knew I had to control, but it was still a game.
Yeah.
And to this day, it's still true. I try not to get too serious about it. I try to do good due diligence, but in the end, it's still a gut feeling of a lot of it.
Right. So when you started, how do I phrase this correctly? I mean, for those listening and watching for the real estate aspect of it, I mean, you can still own all of your properties. You can still make a good cash flow, but you can also still utilize the exchange whenever time comes to sell or move upwards or whatever it may be. You can still utilize the exchange. So it's not like you went full exchange and wealth growth rather than just cash on hand.
Correct.
Yeah.
The big difference is that whatever the tax rate happens to be, you're that much further ahead than the average person walking down the street because they don't have that money.
Yeah.
So you can be better invested with the government's money, essentially, is what it amounts to.
Right. When throughout the process of your career, the single families to 4 families, 8 families, 24 families, apartment buildings, when did you really amass the most wealth?
Probably about 15 to 20 years ago.
Was it the switch from multifamily to apartments, or was it anything like that, or was it more so just a progression?
Well, it was definitely a progression, and the problem with Starker exchanges are that you always have to either go up $1 in value or sale price, or you have to go up $1 in loan amount. And I shouldn't say you have to. You can do lesser, but you're going to still pay some taxes on the difference. It's very difficult to understand when you're just talking about it. You almost need a board. But you can do it with any value is the point. It just depends on how much money you want to trade in is what it amounts to.
So you're saying like if your first trade was with $1,000, your next trade has to be with 1,001.
Correct.
Right. And it doesn't, it has to be if you want to use the full amount of money you can non-taxable.
Much better the way you put it.
Right. And then if you wanted to only trade in 800, you could do that, but you'd have to pay taxes on that $200.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. So
I don't think I really answered your question though.
yeah, the question was when within the process did you really start to make money?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I don't know. I don't know the year. I know that the kids were out of college because didn't have to, but I paid for all that, and so then I had that money extra. Yeah, it's probably been at least 20 years ago when we got more serious about it, and we traded up into some pretty valuable properties in the last 8 or 10 years.
Right. So, would you have considered yourself wealthy when the kids were young, when they
No.
were 5, 10 years old?
Nope. When I was, let's see, it was 1992, so I would have been 30, 29 years. I don't know, whatever, something like that. I sold the single family business to one of my employees, and I actually had enough income amassed that I could just quit when I was only, I wouldn't have been in 92. 93, I would have been 39 years old.
Meaning quit completely
Quit completely.
and just retire.
Yep. So I went in the basement, sat down there, watched TV for 3 hours, came back up and told my wife, that's enough. I said, I'm going to go buy a piece of land and start building apartments. She's like, okay, whatever. And that was when it changed over. But that was in 1992, Sarah was only, I couldn't even tell you.
7.
Yeah. She was 7 years old.
Yeah.
So it was, I thought, that's crazy. They're going to ask this kid in kindergarten what your dad does. And she'll be saying nothing. I said, that'd be almost embarrassing.
Well, so you didn't consider yourself wealthy at that time?
No.
No, you just had enough to live,
Yeah.
so to say.
Yep.
Interesting.
And it was still a wise decision to go back in. It was too much fun to not do it. What else was I going to do?
Right.
I mean, when you're 30 years or 35 years old, your aspirations are a little different. I knew I didn't want to be around the house 24/7. That would have been insane.
Yeah.
I don't even really know if I consider myself wealthy now. I mean, in whose opinion? What's the parameter? What's the barometer?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. You could judge it based off the whole 1%, right? What does the 1% have as wealth, not cash creation, or not a W-2 we're talking, right? But assets and wealth, actual wealth. And I would probably say you're very well up within that 1%, right? But
yeah, I'm sure that's true.
yeah,
But I've said even more recently than a long time ago, I won for nothing. I drive around in a 14-year-old van.
right.
Before that, I drove around in a 20-year-old pickup truck. I didn't care. I still don't care. I take the kids to school with that van, and for the first 6 months, everybody looked at me like there was something wrong with me. I didn't really much care. It's paid for, it works good, and why would I get rid of it?
Yeah.
And the other thing about it that I really like is the visibility. You can see the world from up in this driver's seat.
Right.
Whereas a lot of cars, you're kind of huddled down in there, the roof is over your head, too low, and it's just an example of what do I want?
Are there things within the last 20 years you wish you would have done with the wealth that you created that you didn't do, or even now that you wish you could go out and do something, but you either haven't or you can't?
The only thing I can think of is to buy a jet.
Buy a jet?
But other than that, nothing.
Yeah.
Not that I can think
Well,
of.
you've had a lot of planes throughout your career, right?
Yeah, we're on the fourth one.
The fourth one? That's Ryan's? You consider that the fourth one?
Yeah.
And, okay. What was the biggest plane that you had?
Biggest one was a Cessna 401. It was a 7-passenger twin engine.
Wow.
It was a good workhorse. Ironically, it was the same one that Sam Walton flew around. Not the same exact plane, same exact type.
Right.
It was good enough for
Walmart.
Sam. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it was good enough for him, it was good enough for me.
What got you into planes?
I've liked them since I was a kid.
Why do you think that's the case?
That's a good question. Probably because my dad kept saying I needed to be a pilot because he wanted me to fly him around. Even though he didn't really push me, he should have taken me and grabbed me and went to an airport and took lessons. But he really didn't have that kind of expendable money.
Why did he want you to be a pilot?
So I could fly him around.
Oh, fly him around.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where did he want to go?
Just fly. Just
fly.
like I do today. I mean, I don't care where I go.
Yeah.
It's just you either like it like Ryan. I mean, the best thing would be utopia for him if he could just do nothing else besides fly. Look at today. Today they flew up and went skiing and be back in half an hour. If he had driven, it would have taken 4.5 hours to get there. The skiing time and 4.5 hours to get back. It'd be like if he was still awake when he got back here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you don't realize the importance. You can justify it by saying importance, but you don't realize the gift of time that you get from an airplane.
That and what I mentioned to you yesterday, which I don't know, I find it a little profound, but when we took a ride, I've only been in Ryan's plane once, but when we took a ride up to Minnesota, and once you have your own plane that you can fly around in from private airport to private airport or small airport to small airport, not so much private, but private plane that you can do that, it makes the world feel like it's so much smaller.
Yeah.
And you're when you can get somewhere in a half an hour that would otherwise take so much more time, it makes the world feel so much. It's like a completely different perspective altogether.
Yep. I mean, a big thing. Think about going over to Traverse City, Michigan. You can be there in, 35 minutes?
No.
And if you go there by car, it'll take you 7 hours.
Right.
You got to go through Chicago. You can go around it, but it's just the way it is.
And the airports are so much nicer to go in and out of.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
You walk in.
They always have a car available for you to use for free if you want to.
Yeah.
Every small airport's got one.
Is that
Some of
right?
them are a little weird. We had one day that didn't have any doors on it.
It wasn't like the Jeep without doors, right? It was just
No, it was a car. It was missing the two front doors. They call them club cars, and it's just, like if a pilot lands there and he's got a spare hour, he'll take that car and go to McDonald's and get something to eat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not meant for long distance. And then they just say, hey, when you get back, fill up the tank with gas.
Yeah.
Sure, thanks.
Have you ever had any bad plane experiences?
No, not really.
My wife always talks about something that happened in Colorado where she got super freaked out, and that's why she has such high anxiety flying anywhere.
Yeah, the girls kind of all had that because we did some things that were questionable, I guess. I'm not sure which one she was involved with. I mean, it wasn't like we were going to crash. It was just rough, I think.
That's how she makes it out to be.
That we were going to crash?
That you were in the mountains and it got so hectic and couldn't see anything and there's turbulence.
It's definitely rough going over the Rockies. It depends on what altitude you're at, but it just, I don't know which trip she's talking about. There was one time when the landing gear wouldn't come down. Because in wintertime, as you go down the runway, I don't know if they even do it to this day, I hope they don't, but they used to spread salt. Well, that salt would turn to liquid, and the liquid would come up into the cowling, and then you'd put the landing gear up, and when you wanted it to come down, it was frozen solid.
Yeah.
That happened. I think she was along on that trip. We had 3 tires down. We had the front one and one of the rear ones, and the other one was stuck. And basically, I don't remember exactly how we did it, but we flew around enough in a little lower temperature that I was able to break it loose. And so we didn't need to land with 2 wet tires.
What do they use now, sand?
I don't know what they use. They use liquid. I heard that they're using beet juice.
Really?
Yeah. So
is that like an antifreeze type thing? Or?
I think so, yeah. I don't really know.
Interesting.
But you can still run into that problem.
Yeah.
When the landing gear doesn't go down. But that's, probably the only 2 things I can really think of.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we ever had an engine blow up or anything serious like that.
Well, that's good. But for some reason, I think all of your girls are incredibly afraid of flying.
Yeah, Shannon's probably the least.
Right.
Because she's more just costa di, costa da.
Yeah.
And Bobby's not real fond of it.
Oh, is that right? She still flies everywhere.
Yeah, she does. But she'd rather not anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been an hour. It's actually been an hour and 10 minutes.
Time flies when you're having fun.
I know. Let's end it for today, and we'll get back on it either tomorrow or Monday. Cool.
Good deal.
Thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Been fun.
Yes, absolutely. Do this again. Thanks, everybody.